The message arrived on a Tuesday morning, Earth Standard Time, carried by a battered courier ship that had jumped through 17 different star systems to reach Sol. Captain Sarah Chen of the Earth Defense Force was having her morning coffee when the priority alert chimed across every communication device in the Sol system simultaneously. The holographic display flickered to life in the command center of Luna Base, showing the weathered face of Commander Marcus Webb. His eyes were red-rimmed, his usually pristine uniform wrinkled and stained. Sarah had never seen the veteran officer look so broken. "Sarah," his voice cracked through the transmission. "They're all dead. Every single one of them." The coffee mug slipped from Sarah's fingers, shattering against the metal floor. Around the command center, technicians and officers stopped their work, turning toward the main display with growing horror. "Marcus, slow down. What happened? Who's dead?" Webb's hands shook as he held up a data pad. The colony ships, New Eden, Prometheus Station, Haven's Rest, Terra Nova, all of them, every human settlement beyond the Sol system. His voice dropped to a whisper. "They killed our children, Sarah. They killed them all." The silence in the command center was deafening. For 3 decades, humanity had been spreading across the galaxy, establishing colonies on distant worlds under the protection of the Galactic Confederation. These weren't military outposts or research stations. They were families, communities, children who had never even seen Earth, born among the stars with dreams of building something beautiful in the vast darkness. "The Confederation Council passed something called Resolution 847, Webb continued, his voice gaining strength through anger. "They classified humanity as a dangerous invasive species based on our aggressive expansion patterns and resource consumption rates. The vote was unanimous among all member species except for the Cathani, who abstained." Sarah's mind reeled. The Galactic Confederation had welcomed humanity 35 years ago, eager to include the newest spacefaring species in their grand alliance of civilizations. They had provided star charts, trade agreements, even helped design some of the colony ships. How could this have happened? "They gave us 72 hours to evacuate all human settlements and return to the Sol system," Webb's image continued. "When our people tried to comply, they were told the evacuation window had been reduced to 12 hours due to administrative efficiency requirements. Our ships were still loading families when the Confederation fleet arrived." The hologram flickered, and new images appeared. Surveillance footage from colony security cameras transmitted in the final moments before the networks went dark. Sarah watched in growing horror as sleek alien vessels opened fire on civilian transports trying to lift off from landing pads. She saw the distinctive energy signatures of Zephyrian plasma cannons reducing residential districts to glass. Vrelian shock troopers moving methodically through evacuated buildings, ensuring no one had been left behind to later return. The official Confederation statement says it was a necessary quarantine action to prevent the spread of a dangerous pathogen. Webb's voice was bitter now. They claim every human settlement was infected with something they call aggressive territorial syndrome and had to be sterilized for the safety of galactic civilization. Dr. Elena Vasquez, the Luna Base chief scientist, stepped forward. "That's impossible. Our medical teams have been monitoring colony populations for decades. There's no pathogen, no syndrome. This was just mass murder." Sarah's training kicked in, pushing down the grief and rage that threatened to overwhelm her. "Marcus, what's your current status? How many survivors?" "My ship was en route to Kepler Station when it happened. We picked up 17 escape pods, mostly from the outer colonies that had a few extra minutes of warning. As far as we know, that's it. 17 people out of almost 12 million colonists." 12 million. Sarah closed her eyes, trying to process the number. 12 million humans, erased from existence in a single coordinated strike. Grandparents who had left Earth to see new worlds, parents who wanted their children to grow up under alien suns. Children who had been born among the stars and never known the weight of a homeworld's gravity. "There's something else," Webb said, his voice dropping. "The Confederation has issued a formal ultimatum to Earth. We have 30 days to sign a treaty acknowledging our status as a contained species and agreeing to permanent isolation within the Sol system. If we refuse, they'll consider Earth itself a threat to galactic peace." Admiral Patricia Hayes, the commanding officer of the Earth Defense Force, stepped into view. Her silver hair was pulled back in a regulation bun, but her eyes burned with cold fury. "Captain Chen, I'm ordering an immediate recall of all EDF vessels to Sol system defense positions. We're going to full military alert." "Ma'am," Sarah found her voice, "our entire fleet couldn't stand against the combined Confederation forces. They have thousands of ships, dozens of member species with advanced technology. We're talking about civilizations that have been spacefaring for millennia." "I'm aware of the odds, Captain." Hayes's smile was sharp as a blade. "But they made one critical mistake. They assumed we would act like a civilized species. They judged us by their own standards." She paused, looking directly into the camera. "They have no idea what humanity is capable of when we stop pretending to be civilized." Over the following days, the true scope of the atrocity became clear. Intelligence reports filtered in from the few human merchants and diplomats who had been in neutral space during the attacks. The Confederation hadn't just destroyed the colonies, they had systematically hunted down every human ship, station, and outpost beyond the Sol system. Children's hospitals on medical stations, research scientists studying cosmic phenomena, artists and musicians who had been touring alien worlds, sharing human culture. The Confederation's propaganda machine painted it as a necessary medical intervention. They released fabricated scientific reports about humanity's genetic predisposition to violence and incompatibility with galactic society. They showed carefully edited footage of human colonial security forces training, claiming it was evidence of military buildup. They interviewed expert xenobiologists who explained why humanity was too dangerous to be allowed to spread among the stars. But Sarah knew the truth, and so did every other human in the Sol system. This wasn't about disease or danger. This was about fear. Humanity had been expanding too quickly, growing too strong. In just 35 years, they had gone from a single world species to a civilization with dozens of thriving colonies. Their technology was advancing rapidly, their population growing, their influence spreading. The other Confederation species had looked at humanity's trajectory and seen their own obsolescence approaching. Rather than compete, they had chosen to eliminate the competition. The funeral services lasted for a week, not just on Earth, but on every human station and ship in the Sol system. 12 million names were read aloud, from the smallest children to the eldest colonists. The ceremony was broadcast across every human communication channel, ensuring that no one could forget what had been taken from them. Sarah attended the service on Luna Base, standing in the observation deck with 300 other personnel as they watched the stars through the transparent aluminum windows. Somewhere out there, in the vast darkness, were the graves of worlds that had been home to human families just days before. "We have a choice to make," Admiral Hayes announced during the closing ceremony. "We can accept the Confederation's ultimatum, we can sign their treaty, accept their restrictions, and live as prisoners in our own solar system. We can spend the rest of human history looking at the stars and remembering what we lost." She paused, her voice carrying across every speaker in the Sol system. "Or we can remind the galaxy why evolution made humanity the apex predator of Earth. We can show them what happens when you threaten our children." The vote was unanimous. Every human colony in the Sol system, every ship captain, every space station commander voted the same way. They would not accept the ultimatum. They would not sign the treaty. They would not go quietly into isolation. Instead, they would prepare for war. But not the kind of war the Confederation expected. not fleets meeting in open space, trading volleys of energy weapons until one side's shields failed. The aliens thought in terms of honor and declaration, of formal battles and negotiated surrenders. They had forgotten that humanity's greatest strength had never been their technology or their numbers. It was their ability to adapt, to survive, to find ways to win when victory should have been impossible. The Confederation had given them 30 days. Sarah looked out at the stars and smiled grimly. It would be enough time to remind the galaxy what humans had learned during millions of years of evolution on the most dangerous planet in known space. Predators were patient. They planned. They waited for the perfect moment to strike. And when they did strike, they made sure their prey never got a second chance to hurt their young. The countdown had begun, and somewhere in the darkness between stars, humanity began to sharpen its claws. Dr. Elena Vasquez had not slept in 67 hours. Her laboratory, deep beneath the lunar surface, hummed with activity as teams of scientists worked around the clock on projects that officially didn't exist. The coffee machine in the corner had given up entirely, displaying an error message about excessive usage parameters. "Show me the simulation again," Elena said to her assistant, Dr. James Park. The holographic display flickered to life, showing a three-dimensional model of a Confederation fleet in standard formation. The Vrelian command ships always position themselves at the center, James explained, highlighting the massive vessels in blue. Their shields are nearly impenetrable, but they rely completely on their escort vessels for point defense. The Zephyrian destroyers form the outer perimeter, fast and aggressive but with weaker armor. The Cathani support vessels stay in the rear, providing electronic warfare and communications. Elena nodded, studying the formation. And they've used this same pattern for 300 years? Every major engagement in their historical records. They're not just tactically conservative, Elena. Their entire military doctrine is based on overwhelming firepower delivered through coordinated fleet actions. They don't even have concepts for irregular warfare in their strategic vocabulary. Good. Elena's smile was cold. Because irregular warfare is about to become their biggest problem. 3 levels up, Captain Sarah Chen stood in the war room that had been hastily constructed in Luna Base's command center. The walls were covered with star charts, shipping manifests, and surveillance reports gathered from decades of peaceful trade with the Confederation. Admiral Hayes paced before a massive holographic display showing the positions of every known alien vessel within 50 light-years of Earth. "Status report on Operation Ghost Walk," Hayes commanded. Lieutenant Commander Tom Rodriguez stepped forward. "All 37 stealth ships have reached their assigned positions. The Confederation still has no idea we've had cloaked vessels for the past 15 years. Sarah remembered the development of the stealth technology. It had been a joint project between human engineers and the Cathani, back when the two species had been working together on next-generation ship designs. The Cathani had provided the theoretical framework for bending electromagnetic radiation around a vessel's hull. Humanity had provided the raw computational power needed to make the calculations in real time. The Cathani had assumed humans would use the technology for exploration and research. They had never imagined that humanity might want to build ships that could move unseen through space, appearing and disappearing like ghosts in the void. Excellent. And the cargo? Rodriguez's expression grew grim. Every stealth ship is carrying a full complement of kinetic penetrators. We've stripped every available resource from the asteroid mining operations. Each vessel has enough firepower to crack a moon. The kinetic penetrators were another human innovation that had surprised their alien allies. Most Confederation species relied on energy weapons, lasers, plasma cannons, particle beams. These were efficient and precise, but they required massive power cores and were limited by the target's defensive shields. Humans had taken a different approach. Why waste energy trying to overload shields when you could simply throw a chunk of metal at relativistic speeds? A titanium steel rod weighing 10 kilograms, accelerated to 90% of light speed, carried more destructive force than most energy weapons. And shields designed to deflect coherent energy beams were useless against solid projectiles. The Confederation Council is meeting on Nexus Prime in 6 days, Sarah reported. Our intelligence confirms that representatives from all member species will be present to discuss the human situation. Hayes stopped pacing. Perfect. They want to discuss humanity. We'll give them something to discuss. In another part of Luna Base, Commander Marcus Webb worked with a team of communications specialists on Operation Mindbridge. His console showed a complex web of quantum entanglement communicators that had been secretly installed in every human colony over the past decade. The Confederation thought they had destroyed all human presence beyond Sol, but they had never detected the quantum communication network that still connected the Sol system to the ruins of human settlements. The listening posts are all active, reported specialist Lisa Kim. We're intercepting 93% of Confederation military communications within 12 light years. Webb nodded grimly. The quantum communicators had been hidden in seemingly innocent civilian infrastructure, waste recycling plants, atmospheric processors, even children's playgrounds. When the Confederation had sterilized the colonies, they had focused on destroying obvious military targets and civilian populations. They had left the infrastructure intact, planning to repurpose it for their own use later. They had no idea that every destroyed colony was now broadcasting their military secrets directly to Earth. Sir, Kim continued, we're also detecting massive troop movements toward the Sol system. The Confederation is assembling the largest fleet in their history. Current projections show over 1,500 capital ships. Webb felt a chill despite the warm air of the communications center. 1,500 capital ships represented the combined military might of dozens of spacefaring civilizations. It was enough firepower to reduce entire planets to cosmic dust. Time to arrival? At their current speed, 18 days. Webb opened a secure channel to Admiral Hayes. Ma'am, we have confirmation. The Confederation fleet is significantly larger than our worst-case projections. Hayes's voice was calm through the communicator. Understood, Commander. Are you having second thoughts? Webb thought about the surveillance footage from the colonies. He thought about children he had known personally, kids who had climbed on his shoulders during his visits to Terra Nova and called him Uncle Marcus. He thought about their parents, who had trusted the Confederation's promises of peaceful coexistence. No second thoughts, ma'am. Just wanted to make sure our response matches the scope of their offense. Oh, don't worry about that, Commander. By the time we're finished, the Confederation is going to understand exactly what they unleashed. Meanwhile, on Earth's surface, Dr. Rajesh Patel stood in the control room of the Geneva Particle Physics Laboratory, watching as technicians made final adjustments to equipment that had never been designed for military use. The massive particle accelerator had been built for scientific research to probe the fundamental nature of reality itself. Now it was about to become the most devastating weapon in human history. Theoretical models look good, reported Dr. Sarah Okafor, the project's lead physicist. We can generate a stable wormhole for approximately 47 minutes before the exotic matter degrades. And the targeting system? Locked on to the coordinates for Nexus Prime. The Confederation Council chambers are directly beneath their planetary defense grid. They'll never see it coming. Patel nodded, trying not to think about the ethical implications of what they were about to do. The device they had built could punch a hole through space-time itself, creating a temporary wormhole that bypassed every known defensive technology. It was a one-time weapon. The exotic matter required for its operation existed in limited quantities, but it only needed to work once. Dr. Patel, Okafor said quietly. Are we really going to do this? Kill potentially thousands of alien civilians along with their government? Patel looked at her for a long moment. Dr. Okafor, how many human civilians did they kill? How many children? She was quiet for several seconds. 12 million. The Confederation Council has 43 members representing 27 species. Even if we killed 1,000 civilians in the process, which we won't because their government district is isolated from population centers, we'd still be showing considerably more restraint than they showed us. Back on Luna Base, Admiral Hayes stood before a secure holographic conference that included every human military commander in the Sol system. The faces looking back at her represented the leadership of the most advanced human civilization in history. Scientists, engineers, military officers, and civilian leaders who had spent their entire careers building something beautiful among the stars. Now they were planning the most comprehensive act of revenge in galactic history. Operation Prometheus begins in 72 hours, Hayes announced. Dr. Vasquez, status on the biological component? Elena's face appeared on the display. The virus is ready for deployment. It's specifically designed to target Confederation shield generators. Once introduced into their systems, it will cause cascading failures across entire fleets. The beauty of it is that they'll blame each other. Each species will assume another member of the Confederation has betrayed them. Excellent. Captain Chen, stealth fleet status? All vessels are in position around major Confederation military installations. We've been monitoring their defensive patterns for weeks. When the signal comes, we can eliminate their ability to coordinate a response within minutes. Commander Webb, intelligence operations? We've identified the personal communication frequencies of every major Confederation leader. When Operation Mindbridge goes active, we'll be feeding them false information about attacks that aren't happening and hiding attacks that are. Their entire command structure will be operating with corrupted data. Hayes nodded with satisfaction. The Confederation had made their strategic decision based on the assumption that humanity would respond like a civilized species, with formal declarations of war, fleets meeting in open battle, and negotiated settlements. They had never encountered a species that had evolved on a world where survival required cunning, deception, and the ability to strike from the shadows. Earth had bred humanity for millions of years, teaching them that sometimes the only way to protect your family was to ensure your enemies never got a chance to threaten them again. Dr. Patel, wormhole weapon status? The targeting system is locked onto Nexus Prime. We can fire on your command. Outstanding. Hayes looked around at the assembled commanders. Ladies and gentlemen, the Confederation thinks they understand humanity because they've seen us at our best. Explorers, scientists, artists, builders. They've never seen us at our worst. She paused, her voice growing cold. They killed our children because they thought we were too civilized to retaliate effectively. They thought our commitment to peace made us weak. They're about to learn that our commitment to peace was a choice we made because we knew what we were capable of when that choice was taken away. The conference ended, and Sarah Chen found herself alone in the command center, looking out at the Earth through the observation windows. Somewhere down there, families were gathering for dinner, children were playing in parks, elderly grandparents were telling stories to young ones who would never get to see the colonies their older siblings had called home. The Confederation had intended to break humanity's spirit by destroying their children. Instead, they had awakened something that had been sleeping in the human genetic code for thousands of years. Something that remembered when survival meant hunting in packs. When protecting the tribe required eliminating threats completely. When mercy was a luxury that could get your family killed. The countdown timer on the main display showed 17 hours and 36 minutes until Operation Prometheus began. Sarah smiled grimly as she watched the numbers decrease. The Confederation had given them 30 days to surrender. The first sign that something had gone terribly wrong came at exactly 0347 Galactic Standard Time, when the Vrelian Second Fleet suddenly ceased all communications with Confederation Command. Admiral Zektar, the proud Vrelian commander who had personally overseen the destruction of the Terra Nova colony, was reviewing tactical displays when his flagship's main computer began displaying error messages in 17 different languages. "Navigation systems offline," reported his tactical officer, panic creeping into his voice. "Shield generators showing cascade failures across all frequencies." "Impossible," Zektar growled, his forearms working frantically at the control interface. "Our systems are hardened against all known viral attacks." What Zektar didn't know was that Dr. Elena Vasquez had spent the past 3 weeks designing something that wasn't a known viral attack. The code quietly spreading through his ship's systems had been built specifically to exploit security vulnerabilities that existed only in Confederation technology. It was a digital predator that fed on the electronic ecosystem that connected every alien vessel in space. Across the galaxy, similar scenes were playing out on hundreds of Confederation ships. The virus spread through their quantum communication networks like wildfire, turning their greatest strategic advantage, their ability to coordinate fleet movements across vast distances, into their greatest weakness. On Luna Base, Captain Sarah Chen watched the tactical displays with grim satisfaction as red warning indicators began appearing across the galactic map. Each indicator represented a Confederation vessel that had suddenly lost primary systems. "Phase 1 is complete," reported Lieutenant Commander Rodriguez. "Confederation fleet coordination is down by 67% and climbing." Admiral Hayes nodded from her position at the central command console. "Begin Phase 2. All stealth vessels, you are cleared for strike operations." Light years away, Commander Lisa Park sat in the bridge of the stealth ship Nemesis, watching the massive Zephyrian orbital shipyard that had built many of the vessels used in the colony attacks. The facility was enormous, capable of constructing 12 capital ships simultaneously, and was defended by enough firepower to level a small moon. "Targeting solutions locked," reported her weapons officer. "All kinetic penetrators ready for launch." Park thought about the children she had seen in the surveillance footage from New Eden, running toward evacuation ships that would never take off. Fire. The Nemesis unleashed its entire payload in a single devastating volley. 47 titanium steel rods, each accelerated to 91% of light speed, crossed the distance to the shipyard in 1.3 seconds. The facility's shields, designed to stop energy weapons, offered no resistance to solid projectiles moving at relativistic speeds. The shipyard died in a brilliant flash of vaporized metal and superheated plasma. Along with it died the 18,000 Zephyrian workers who had been building the next generation of ships for the Confederation fleet. Similar strikes were occurring throughout Confederation space. The stealth vessels that humanity had secretly positioned over the past months emerged from the darkness like hunting spiders, striking at military installations, fleet bases, and weapons manufacturing facilities. Each ship carried enough firepower to destroy targets that should have taken entire fleets to eliminate. On Nexus Prime, the Confederation Council was in emergency session when reality itself suddenly tore open above their heads. The counselors looked up in horror as a perfect circle of twisted space-time materialized in the chamber's ceiling, revealing a view of distant Earth on the other side. "What sorcery is this?" demanded High Counselor Vexhai, the ancient Cathani leader who had voted to abstain from Resolution 847. The answer came in the form of Dr. Rajesh Patel's voice, broadcast through the wormhole from the Geneva laboratory. "This is not sorcery, Counselor. This is science. This is what happens when you threaten the children of a species that learn to split atoms before they learn to leave their homeworld." Through the wormhole came something that looked deceptively simple, a metallic sphere about the size of a human head. It fell gently to the chamber floor, landed with a soft clink, and began to emit a low humming sound. "You have 30 seconds to evacuate this chamber before that device activates," Patel's voice continued. "Not because we're showing you mercy, but because we want the survivors to carry a message to the rest of the galaxy." The counselors fled in panic, their ancient dignity forgotten in the face of humanity's casual demonstration of power that could reach across space-time itself. The device continued humming for exactly 30 seconds, then projected a holographic display that filled the entire chamber. The display showed images from every destroyed human colony, children playing in parks, families celebrating harvest festivals, scientists making discoveries that could have benefited all galactic civilization, artists creating works of beauty that would have enriched the cultural heritage of dozens of species. Then it showed what the Confederation had done to them. 12 million human beings, Patel's voice said quietly. 12 million innocent people who trusted you when you said there was a place for humanity among the stars. You murdered them because you were afraid of what we might become. The holographic display shifted, now showing real-time imagery of Confederation installations being destroyed across the galaxy. Fleet bases vaporizing under kinetic bombardment. Command centers going dark as their systems succumbed to viral attacks. Ships spinning helplessly in space as their crews struggled with equipment that no longer responded to their commands. "We're not showing you this to gloat," Patel continued. "We're showing you this so you understand what we've become because of what you did to our children." Back in space, the Confederation fleet that had been assembling to finish off humanity found itself fighting a war unlike anything in their historical records. Their ships were designed for honorable combat between civilized species, not for defending against enemies that struck from stealth and disappeared before retaliation was possible. Admiral Zektar, his flagship now barely functional, managed to establish communication with the remnants of his fleet. "All vessels, maintain formation and prepare for—" His words were cut off as the space around his ship suddenly filled with kinetic projectiles. The Nemesis and her sister ships had appeared from nowhere, unleashing devastating fire before cloaking again and vanishing into the void. "Where are they?" Zektar roared at his tactical officer. "How are they hiding from our sensors?" "Unknown, sir. Our detection systems can't track them when they're cloaked." "Then flood the space around us with energy fire. Hit everything." "Sir, that will drain our power cells and leave us defenseless when they attack again." Zektar realized with growing horror that he was no longer fighting a military engagement. This was a hunt, and he was the prey. Meanwhile, on Earth, Dr. Elena Vasquez was monitoring the cascade effects of her virus through the Confederation's communication networks. The code she had designed was not just disabling their ships, it was learning, adapting, evolving as it spread through their systems. "The virus has reached critical mass," she reported to Admiral Hayes. "Confederation fleet coordination is now down by 94%. They can't even maintain basic communication between their vessels." Hayes smiled grimly. "And their response? Panic. They're trying to shut down their quantum networks. But that means isolating their ships from each other. They're having to choose between maintaining communication or maintaining system integrity." "Excellent. Begin Phase 3. Phase 3 was the cruelest part of humanity's revenge, because it offered hope before snatching it away. Across Confederation space, human voices began broadcasting on emergency frequencies, offering aid to disabled alien vessels. "This is Captain Johnson of the human rescue vessel Mercy," came a calm voice over the communication channels. "We're detecting multiple vessels in distress. Please respond with your position and we'll provide assistance." The desperate Confederation crews, their ships dead in space and their supplies running low, eagerly responded to the offers of help. Human ships appeared as if from nowhere, approaching the disabled vessels with promises of repair crews and medical assistance. But when the alien crews opened their docking bays to receive help, they found themselves facing human soldiers in full combat armor. "Surrender your vessel," the humans would say politely. "Your crew will be treated humanely and return to Confederation space once this conflict is resolved." Some alien captains chose to surrender, recognizing that their situation was hopeless. Others chose to fight and discovered that humans who had been trained in the art of ship-to-ship combat were far more dangerous than the peaceful colonists they had murdered. The message was clear. Humanity could show mercy when they chose to, but mercy was a gift that had to be earned. Commander Marcus Webb intercepted a communication from High Counselor Vexhai to the remaining Confederation forces. The ancient Cathani's voice was filled with something Webb had never heard from an alien before: genuine fear. "To all Confederation vessels," Vexhai's message began, "you are hereby ordered to cease all hostile actions against human forces and withdraw to minimum safe distance from Sol system. The Council recognizes that we have made a grave error in our assessment of human nature." Webb leaned back in his chair with satisfaction. "Too little, too late, Counselor." He opened a channel to Admiral Hayes. "Ma'am, the Confederation is trying to call for a ceasefire." "Are they now?" Hayes's voice carried dark amusement. "And what do you think we should tell them?" "I think we should remind them that they had 30 days to negotiate. That deadline expired 6 hours ago." The final phase of Operation Prometheus was the most devastating of all. Across Confederation space, human stealth ships began targeting something more precious than military installations or government buildings. They began hitting the infrastructure that kept entire civilizations alive: water processing plants on desert worlds, atmospheric generators on marginal colonies, medical facilities treating alien diseases that had no cure. The humans struck with surgical precision, causing maximum disruption while minimizing actual casualties. The message was unmistakable. If humanity's children had been denied the right to live among the stars, then no one else's children were safe either. On Nexus Prime, High Counselor Vexhai stood in the ruins of the Council chamber, reading reports that grew worse by the hour. The Confederation's military power had been effectively neutralized. Their communication networks were compromised. Their civilian infrastructure was under attack by enemies they couldn't detect or counter. "How many ships have we lost?" he asked his aide. 843 confirmed destroyed, over 2,000 more disabled or captured. The humans are offering to return the captured vessels and crews in exchange for—" The aide hesitated. "In exchange for what?" "Complete withdrawal from all former human colonies. Recognition of humanity's right to expand freely throughout the galaxy without Confederation interference, and payment of reparations for the destruction of human settlements." Vexhai felt his heart sink. "And if we refuse?" "They say the attacks will continue until there's nothing left of Confederation civilization." The ancient counselor looked up at the tier in space-time that still hung above the chamber, through which he could see the blue marble of Earth spinning peacefully in the void. Such a small world to have produced such terrifying predators. "Contact the human government," he said finally. "Tell them we accept their terms." "All of them, sir?" "All of them. And add a formal apology for our actions. Make it clear that the Confederation acknowledges complete responsibility for the destruction of human colonies and the loss of innocent life." As the aide hurried to comply, Vexhai remained staring through the wormhole at Earth. He thought about the warnings his species' ancient texts contained about worlds that bred apex predators. Planets where life was so dangerous that only the most adaptable, cunning, and ruthless creatures could survive to develop intelligence. The Cathani had known what humanity was from the moment they made contact. They had seen the scars on Earth's surface from asteroid impacts and supervolcanic eruptions. They had studied the fossil record showing constant mass extinctions and evolutionary arms races. They had recognized Earth for what it was, a forge that had spent millions of years creating the perfect survival species. That was why the Cathani had abstained from Resolution 847. They had known that destroying humanity's children would awaken something that the galaxy was not prepared to face. Now, as Confederation civilization burned around him, Vexhai finally understood what his ancestors had been trying to warn them about. Some species were meant to inherit the stars not because they were the most advanced or the most peaceful, but because they were the most willing to do whatever was necessary to protect their young. 6 months later, Captain Sarah Chen stood on the observation deck of the newly constructed Luna Station, watching as human colony ships prepared for departure to reclaim the worlds that had been taken from them. The ships carried not just colonists, but human military advisors who would ensure that what happened to the first wave of colonies could never happen again. "Any regrets?" asked Admiral Hayes, joining her at the observation window. Sarah thought about the question carefully. The war, if it could even be called a war, had lasted less than a week. The Confederation's surrender had been total and unconditional. Humanity now had unrestricted access to the galaxy, guaranteed by a treaty signed in the blood of civilizations that had learned too late what happened when you threatened Earth's children. "No regrets about defending ourselves," she said finally. "But I do wonder if we could have found another way." Hayes was quiet for a long moment. "The Confederation murdered 12 million innocent people, Sarah. Men, women, and children who had never raised a hand against anyone. They did it because they thought we were too civilized to retaliate effectively." She gestured toward the departing colony ships. "Now those ships carry families who know they're protected by something more than treaties and good intentions. Their children will grow up among the stars knowing that humanity never abandons its own." Sarah nodded slowly. The galaxy had learned a lesson that would not be forgotten for generations. Humanity was indeed capable of great civilization, art, science, and compassion. But they were also capable of something else, something that had allowed them to survive on the most dangerous planet in known space and eventually claim the stars themselves. They were capable of becoming whatever they needed to become to ensure their children had a future. And now the entire galaxy knew it. The last transmission from the Confederation Council had included a formal declaration that would be broadcast to every spacefaring species in the galaxy. "Let it be known that humanity has demonstrated beyond question their right to inherit the stars. Any civilization that threatens human colonies, human ships, or human citizens does so at their own peril. The Confederation formally recognizes humanity as the apex species of this galaxy, and we pledge never again to stand between them and their destiny among the stars." It was signed by every surviving member of the Council, written in their own blood according to ancient galactic tradition. Sarah smiled as she watched the last colony ship disappear into hyperspace. Somewhere among those stars were worlds where human children would grow up free, protected by the knowledge that their species had proven beyond doubt that some lines should never be crossed. The galaxy had learned its lesson, and humanity had come home to claim their inheritance. They would need less than 30 hours to remind the galaxy why Earth's apex predators had conquered an entire planet long before they ever reached for the stars. In 17 hours, the universe would remember what humanity had been before they learned to be civilized, and the Confederation would learn what happened when you threatened humanity's young.